Okay, good morning or afternoon yet again. My name is Sarah Brewster, and I'm here today to introduce Marvin Crossnow and get us ready to attend the webinar today on automating revenue, budgets, and reports with ActivityHD. So we have just a brief disclaimer before we get started. This presentation is for information only. This presentation contains our own opinions, and this presentation is proprietary. When you close out of the webinar today, a survey for the webinar should pop up in your browser. We would ask that you take this short survey and let us know what you liked or didn't like about today's webinar. We love feedback from you guys, so much so that we are going to give away a $25 Amazon gift card to one of our survey respondents. So be sure to fill out the survey for your chance to win. All right, a few more things. At this point, you should be hearing audio. If you can't hear me, hopefully you can see the slide that we're suggesting that you adjust your headset or change your audio device in GoToWebinar. At this point, you are also welcome, of course, to submit any questions you have via the GoToWebinar interface. I'll be online in the background today monitoring questions and answering as I can. Go ahead and submit your questions when you have them instead of holding them to the end, because that lets me answer what I need to during the webinar, and it also lets me know what good questions we have to ask Marvin at the end. So we'll try to answer them either through messaging, through GoToWebinar at the end of the session, or we will follow up by email. Lastly, an email will be sent following our session with a link to the recording and the slide deck. If you don't receive it within the next business day, go ahead and contact us and we'll make sure and send that out to you. All right, that's it from me. Welcome again to Automating Revenue, Budgets, and Reports with ActivityHD. And here's Marvin Crossnow.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for attending today's webinar. A follow-on webinar to the League of American Orchestras Conference. We've entitled this presentation, Automating Revenue, Budgets, and Reporting with ActivityHD. I'm Marvin Crossnow, and I'll be doing the presentation today. Just a little bit about our company first. Our company is Accountingware, and the ERP system that we're going to talk about today is ActivityHD. The HD stands for Accounting in High Definition, because you can see your data with ActivityHD. ActivityHD has been built for not-for-profits. We have a large customer base in the not-for-profit industry, and specifically we have a large customer base in the event industry. And as an orchestra, you're well aware that you have various events during the year, and our software will work very well in that environment. There are a lot of challenges for orchestra accounting. Namely, you have limited budgets and a limited accounting staff. We also have a lot of reporting capability or reporting requirements. Some of them can be fairly burdensome, especially in the not-for-profit industry. You also have a problem because you have to recognize revenues as your events happen. So you have problems in accounting for the revenue recognition. You also have functional analysis reports, especially as it relates to your 990 reporting. A lot of you have grants, and there are certain issues incumbent in the grant management area, maybe encumbrances and things like that for the various grants and endowments. And many of you are also privileged enough to have endowments and the associated reports thereof. We have especially a good story to tell if you have endowments and a lot of investments and you commingle your funds in those investments. We won't be covering that today in today's demo, but that's something that you might be aware of. So in the presentation today, we can't present a lot about ActivityHD, but we're going to present today just 3 or 4 areas that ActivityHD really excels in. And in order to do the presentation, I have phrased several wouldn't it be nice questions. So wouldn't it be nice to really use Excel for all your financial reporting? And the emphasis here is on the word really. And wouldn't it be nice to automate the interface to your ticketing CRM platform? Some of you may use Patron Manager, some of you may use Tessitura or other ticketing CRM systems. So wouldn't it really be nice to have a very efficient way to assimilate the information in that ticketing CRM platform? And wouldn't it really be nice to incorporate a document management system directly into your accounting system? And lastly, wouldn't it be nice to have a budgeting and forecasting system integrated with your accounting system? So obviously, ActivityHD does a really good job in all four of these areas. So we're going to spend time today looking at these four areas of ActivityHD. The very first one that we talked about is Excel. And Price Waterhouse stated a few years ago, Excel remains the default financial reporting tool for most organizations, even after implementing advanced ERP systems. Well, a typical ERP system certainly uses Excel, and I would say that regardless of what ERP system today you're using, I would bet that you are somehow getting that information out to Excel for your final reporting. Either you're reporting to your departmental managers or your own analytical work, or reporting to your board of directors. And almost in every case, that's going to be an export to Excel. So typical ERP systems, you have report writers that you identify the information that you want to put in a tabular form, but then ultimately you take that to Excel to do the actual reporting. Well, ActivityHD is different because ActivityHD, you both design and publish your financial reporting in Excel. So this is the first thing we're going to show. We're going to show Excel as we're going to show you how to design your reports in Excel and publish them in Excel. So let's put away the slide deck just for a few minutes and let's go into ActivityHD. And as we look at ActivityHD, we're looking at our dashboard here. And over here on the left, we have a company, Opera Texas, and we have the various packages that we have in Opera Texas, namely the general ledger, the bank reconciliation, payables, receivables, fixed assets, and we also have a payroll human resources. But to look at how ActivityHD uses Excel, let's go into the general ledger and let's go into the financial designs here. Now in this particular company, there are a lot of financial designs, but we want to show you how you can use Excel as your report writer. So I'm going to, first of all, build a very simple report using Excel. And this will show you how we use Excel to actually design your financials. So I'm going into Excel. I'm going to create a new Excel spreadsheet. And this is going to be the League of American Orchestras demo. And I'm going to make a very simple 1 or 2 line workbook, and then we will come back and show you some more sophisticated workbooks. So I'm going into Excel. Now this is 100% Excel, not a subset of Excel, but 100% Excel, and I'm going to use the 6th period, which is December in this set of books for 2025. So if I wanted to produce a financial statement, I'm going to show you first how to build this financial statement in Excel, one cell at a time. But then in a minute, I'm going to show you a finished financial and show you the result, what you should expect once you get your financials built in Excel. So up here at the top of the financial, I would want to put in the name of the organization. So I'll go into the company name function and I'll pull in the company name. And in this case, it's Demo Opera Texas. But since I said this is 100% Excel, I can go into the home button here. I can color it red. I can make it a lot bigger. I can make it bold, underline, because as I design my financial, I have the full functionality of Excel. So there's the name of the company. Underneath the name of the company, I might want to do something like put in the period or the point in time where I'm going to set in order to pull information in for the various accounts in the chart of accounts. So I can go into the activity ribbon here and I can say I want to produce this financial as of the period December 31st, 2024. So ActivityHD has built in various functions. There are functions that return numerical values. There are functions that return descriptions. There are functions that return individual account information. There are functions that return period information, and there are functions that return company information. So far in this particular spreadsheet, I've used the company and the period functions. So let's see what else we can do. Let's go over here into cell B5 and let's put the name of an account. So we can put the account description of the account 10000-00-A. And this particular account is the Vectra Operating Bank account. And then over here, maybe in J5, I would want to put the balance of this account. So I can go to my financial functions here and I can say I want to pull the balance of that account in. And so every numeric function has 5 arguments. The only argument that I need here is just to identify the particular account, namely the Vectra operating account, which is gl.account, which is equal to 10000-00-A, and that will bring in a numeric value. But since this is 100% Excel, I can go up and I can put my formatting in. And now as I build this financial, I can actually use the little down arrow that came up next to the number, and I can drill down and see all the underlying postings. In this case, a lot of postings that make up that amount on the financial. So we can build our financial directly in Excel using the functions that are in the ActivityHD ribbon. And as we build it, we can drill down on the numbers to validate that they are the correct numbers as we build. And since we have 100% of the functionality of Excel, we can put a dollar sign on it, we can underline it, we can do anything that we want. So this sort of shows you how we could get started building a financial design in Excel. So let's put away this design and let's look at a design that's already out there and it's already available. So let's put this away. We will save this. And let's go into this financial reporting package. And let's bring up this workbook. Now this workbook has had a lot of work done on it. So it's a very extensive workbook. It has a lot of tabs down here at the bottom. But we can go into the workbook. We can calculate the values that go into the workbook. You'll notice down here at the bottom that it's calculating 38%, 44%, 53%. But using the techniques that I showed you on that very simple financial that we produced a few minutes ago, we can pull up something like this that represents a complete organizational set of accounts. So here's a statement of activities. Here's a functional expense statement. Here's a forecast, both a forecast and a budget. Here's a 5-year budget history and so forth. So we can produce these kinds of financials, and for any one of these numbers that are on the financial statements in Excel, we can take a particular expense amount on this, like rental fees here, and we can drill down on those rental fees, and we can see all the postings in our accounting system that make up those rental fees. And if we see a particular rental fee that we want to investigate further, like this $7,072.50, we can click on that $7,000 bill. We can go to the AP invoice in our accounting system that is represented by that. We can drill down on that invoice, and then we can actually open and see an attachment which justifies that particular expense. So here is the actual bill that was rendered to validate that expense. So we can build financials like this using the Excel functionality with the add-ins that ActivityHD adds to Excel to build these kind of financials directly in Excel. This is much different than what what most of you normally do, and that is build your financials in some sort of a report writer for your ERP system and then export to Excel. So, and while you're building or after you've finished, you can, as we've just shown, drill down to the underlying details and drill back to the very specific details on every entry in here, even all the way back to a document that is stored with that particular bill. So, isn't it nice that we can use Excel as our financial report writer in ActivityHD? Now, I've shown you several different kinds of reports here, like budgetary report, statement of activities, budget history, actual history, cash flows, things like that. So one of the natural questions that you would ask at this point is, what kinds of things can I build in Excel? And we have a very powerful story to tell. The answer to that question is, if you can imagine a statement that you want to build in Excel, if you can imagine the statement in Excel that you want to build, ActivityHD can build it if that information is coming out of your ERP general ledger system. So that gives you an idea that you can build almost anything that you want. And in a few minutes, we're going to show you some budgetary financials that we built that will really challenge that statement. So if you can imagine it, you can build it if the information is coming out of your general ledger system. So isn't it nice that we can use Excel as our financial report writer in ActivityHD? So let's put away this particular financial and let's look at our second wouldn't it be nice features. So wouldn't it be nice if we could somehow automate the interface to our ticketing platform? So this particular company uses Tessitura. We have automation for Tessitura, and let me go back to my presentation here. So let's look at the next. So a typical solution that most of you use today in interfacing to your ticketing CRM system is you're downloading files. And you're downloading those files, you're having to maybe put them in Excel, you're maybe having to manipulate those files in some fashion in order to incorporate those into your accounting system. Well, with ActivityHD, you can literally click a couple of buttons. And with that, several things will happen if today you're using the Tessitura and/or Patron Manager interfaces. What will happen is that you'll be able to pull down all your ticket sales, your donations, things like that. It will post this information into General Ledger with full revenue recognition at the point that you're posting into the General Ledger, and will also put all the information into the receipt information so that you can get that into your bank reconciliation files. As I said today we're doing this with Tessitura and Patron Manager, and we have some other interfaces that we would like to develop. So if you're using a different ticketing system, let's talk and let's see if we can also do the same thing with those ticketing systems, which will be much different than what you're doing today with downloaded files. So let's just look at one of these and see how it works and see how easy it is. So let's put away our slide deck again, and let's go into the accounts receivable, because when we bring in the information from the ticketing system, we typically bring it in to the accounts receivable side. That doesn't mean that we're actually creating a set of books that is an accrual set of books, because these are cash sales, but we're bringing them in and immediately recognizing the cash, but we bring them in as invoices. So this particular company uses Tessitura, and we will go to the Tessitura magic button up here in the menu system, and we will say that we want to bring down all of the information into our accounting system, beginning with a certain posting number. And we're going to bring in probably around 5 days worth of information, starting with posting number 5942, going through posting number 5946. So there are 5 different posting numbers that we're bringing in. These are balanced sets of postings. We're going to use a deposit date of today, and you'll notice that this will probably take less than 2 minutes. So it will go out and it will bring down 5 days of transactions. This could be anywhere from 5 transactions to 500 transactions, but it's very, very efficient. And it's not downloading a file. We're logging into the Tessitura system. We're giving it the credentials into the Tessitura system. We're bringing that information into the accounting system, and we'll see what that looks like because it's already finished. So if we sort this by created date, these are the 5 postings that we just brought in to the accounting system right there. If we look at an individual transaction, then this shows you the transactions, and this shows you in a special tab here called the Extra GL tab, this shows you the revenue recognition. So in this case, there are deferred revenues of $78 for some event ticket for this particular project that's in the Tessitura system. Here's another project in the Tessitura system. Here's another project in the Tessitura system, and these are basically events. These are events and events code that are in the Tessitura system. So we brought in the invoices and we paid for them immediately. We recorded the revenue recognition. We recorded the receipt detail, which will ultimately end up as a receipt so that we can balance our bank statement. So we've done all of the accounting for those 5 probably days of information from the Tessitura system, all with a click of a button. How much different is that than what you're typically doing today with downloading files and doing your revenue recognition by downloading files? A lot easier, a lot better, a lot more accurate, a lot less error prone, and we get the revenue recognition without your having to do that by hand some way. So isn't it nice that ActivityHD has the ability to directly interface into your accounting system, directly interface your ticketing system into the accounting system? And we have especially good stories to tell for Tessitura and Patron Manager. And if you're using a different ticketing system, let's visit about that. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is I want to talk about document management. You've really already seen a little bit of this. So how do we do document management in the ActivityHD ERP system? Well, we do it with a drag drop. So if you get an invoice in for a particular vendor invoice, you can scan that invoice in, and then you just drag that to the record that it belongs to in ActivityHD, drop it onto that record, and that will incorporate it into the accounting system. We want to get rid of your manual filing cabinets. We want you to shred those documents after you attach them in ActivityHD. Now, why is this very valuable? Because this is valuable as you do the research in your accounting system, whether it's from an Excel spreadsheet, whether it's from a trial balance, or whether it's from graphics, you always want to ultimately be able to go all the way back to the original documentation. So let's investigate that. Let's see how this works in ActivityHD. So if we are in what I've got in my I have a folder, and I have in that folder, I have some attachment examples. So here's a folder that we have, and in this folder, we have some images that are PDF images. We have some Word documents. We have some audio files. We have some Excel spreadsheets. We have any kind of document that you can imagine. The only thing that you need to do in order to incorporate that into your accounting system is just take and drag this over and drop it onto the record in ActivityHD. So that we just drug that PDF file over and attached it to this particular, I believe it's that one. Let's go and add the attachments to it so I can see which one I dropped it onto. I dropped it onto this one. So if we open that particular document, then here's that attachment that was stored in the file system, and now it's on this particular accounts receivable invoice. If I go to something else like an accounts payable invoice, again, all I need to do from my attachment examples is take this Word document, bring this over here and drag and drop it onto this Delta Dental. And so now with this Delta Dental, I could open that and look at it. And here's that attachment that I just dropped. Here's the Word document that I just dropped on to that particular AP invoice. So you can attach anything to anything. Maybe you have in the general ledger, you have a journal entry and you need to document that journal entry with some sort of a journal entry Excel spreadsheet. You can just take this over and drag and drop it onto this AR invoice summary right here. And so now on that AR invoice summary, we open that and look at the attachments, we'll have that spreadsheet. So you can document your entries with spreadsheets. You can attach anything to anything in ActivityHD. Well, how is this used? How is this ultimately used when we get into researching our accounts? Well, let's investigate. We've already done some investigation. Remember when we were in our financial designs and we had a workbook out here, and we'll reopen that same workbook that we looked at earlier. So again, we're looking at this workbook. Let's go down and it's populating. Well, right now we need to calculate. So we hit the F9 key to calculate these workbooks. And remember, it's calculating all of these workbooks, not just the statement of activities. Let's go into the functional expenses. We did this a few minutes ago, but just for your recollection, we can go into the rental fees here. We can drill down on those rental fees. We can look at a specific rental fee, and earlier somebody dragged and dropped that onto this AP invoice. And so now we can look at that AP invoice and we can look at the attachments, and here is that original document which documents that particular expense. So we can do research using those documents and the images of those documents from Excel, from our Excel presentations. But we can also investigate that from a trial balance. So let's go into our financial views here and let's look at a trial balance. As you can see, there's a lot of variations. There's a lot of ways that we can look at trial balances here. But let's look at a traditional trial balance. A traditional trial balance has the account number, the beginning balance, the debits, the credits, the net activity, and the ending balance. And let's look at that for just right now. I'm just looking at the expense accounts. I could look at it for all the accounts, but I want to just look at the expense accounts. And so as I look at this and I refresh the data, let's see, no, I don't need to refresh the data. I don't want to be in today's point in time. I want to go back to last December. So I'll go back to period 6 and it will refresh. And so now we can see all the information from period 6. If we go look at that same account, the 55008 account where we were looking at those rental bills. So now I'm in a trial balance, not in an Excel spreadsheet. And if I look at the costume rental here, and I look at that $7,072 that we've been looking at before, and now I see that $7,072, and I go back exactly the same way that I did from the Excel spreadsheet. Here is the invoice, and here is the attachment on that invoice. So it's exactly the same drill down experience, exactly the same drill down procedure going from a trial balance that I had going from an Excel spreadsheet. So we can investigate from Excel financial designs. We can investigate our accounting from a trial balance, but we can also investigate our accounting from graphics. So let's go back up to this Demo Opera Texas and let's look at the graphics that we have out here. So here's a graphic of costume rentals. So in this costume rentals, we have, costume rentals for the month of July were 183,000. For the month of August were 17,000. For the month of September were 10,000. That particular bill that we've been looking at in the Excel spreadsheet and also in the trial balance is here in August. Here is that same $7,072. And so I can drill down on this again with exactly the same set of procedures that I've been through twice before. I open that same exact bill. I go to the same exact attachment, and here I see the documentation behind it. So what I'm pointing out is that whether you're using Excel spreadsheets, whether you're using trial balances, or whether you're using graphics, we can always get back to those transactions with exactly the same processes. I want to show you just one more example down here with a Visual Financial Explorer. So we can go into the Visual Financial Explorer. We can select a set of accounts. I'm going to look up some of those accounts beginning with 58. So I'm going to look at some of those same accounts that we were just looking at, maybe the costume rentals that, let's see, 58008, 55, not 58. So I want to look at 5500 something. So here's venue rentals, set rentals, property rentals, lighting, and costume. Costume rentals is what we've been looking at before, but this will just give you an idea of what's possible. So now I'm doing my own graphs rather than relying on graphs that are already pre-built. So I'm just going in and playing with the graphics in the system, and this graphic, this visual financial explorer that I'm looking at is very versatile. So I can take out my venue rentals here. I can take out my set rentals. I can take out my property rentals. I can take out my lighting rentals and just look at the costume rentals. And remember that costume rental that we were looking at before was in this 17,000. And so here's that same $7,072 that we could drill back. So this is just a different graphical representation. I could add back in these other kinds of revenues, and I could drill down on those and look at those and drill back on those expenses just like I could the original expenses. So we have a lot of capabilities in graphics to drill back on to the original documentation. But the point is, regardless of how I present my financial information, I get back to the original documents the same way. So isn't it nice that we can present our financial data in Excel spreadsheets and trial balances and in graphics and still have the ability to explore all the way back to the document management system? Okay, so as a final, is it nice? Let's go back to our presentation. So wouldn't it be nice that I could create a budgeting forecasting system where I can post my forecasts and post my budget directly into the accounting system, just like I make any other posting? We're going to see that in a minute. Wouldn't it be nice to take that information and produce a workbook and take those workbooks and disseminate those workbooks to budget owners so that they can do their own research back into the accounting system, and then they can evaluate history and prior budgets and things like that, and then they can actually suggest a budgetary amount or a forecast amount? Then that budgeting and forecasting can be approved, and it can be taken to the board of directors, and the board of directors can improve it. And then you can use those budgetary postings that you've made to compare to your actuals and manage your business in an efficient way. So we're going to take this all the way from the top. We're going to show you how you post your budgets and forecasts just like you make any other natural posting into the accounting system. We're going to show you a workbook that will evaluate, show you history, show you historical actuals, historical budgets, and then it'll give you an area to fill out, and then we'll show you how we can get that automatically into the accounting system. So let's put away our presentation and let's go into the accounting system. And let's, first of all, let's look into the general ledger and let's look and see how we make a journal entry. So I'm not going to make a budgetary or a forecast journal entry. First of all, I just want to show you how to make a typical journal entry into your actual set of books. So here is the journal entry input. So this is a payment or something. So this is a manual entry. I'll take away my capitalization here. So I'm going to make a posting from my bank account. So I'll take this vector operating account. I'll take as of today's date, maybe. This is a reference, just a journal entry, and I'm going to credit $8,800 to the vector operating account. And then I'm going to charge it out to that costume rental that I've been working on, 55008. So this is the 55008 account. And I can use this 55008, except I put a 7 there, didn't I? So I'll go back 55008, 00A. And I need to get, it doesn't have that in, I'll delete that and I'll find one that it does have. So this is for a particular department. That 10 represents the department. So I'll charge it out to that department for the $8,800. So that's how you make a typical posting. And so I can save that into my accounting system, and I have to have a value here. So just test is my value, is my batch value. So that makes a posting into the accounting system. But the reason I wanted to make this posting into the accounting system is I want to show you that you use exactly the same technique to post your budgets and your forecast. Right now, this A at the end, that means I'm posting into my actual set of books, my FASB set of books. But if I want to have a new entry and post into my budgetary, I can do that by posting costume expense, costume budget. So now I'll do exactly the same thing. I'll do the 55008 10B for my budgets. So this is posting into my budget accounts as of today's date again. My reference is maybe a test, and my credit is $800, except I want to debit for the expense. So $800 expense. And so now I can just say post that. Now, what's different about this and posting into my FASB set of books? Well, if I tried a single-legged entry here without equal debits and credits into my FASB set of books, it would not let me. But when you're making postings into your budgets, you do not have to have a balanced entry. You can just make the debit entry. So I could save that with no problem. So that saved that into my budget ledger. And so that's another thing that we have in ActivityHD is we have various ledgers. We have your actual FASB ledger, we have your budgetary ledger, and we also can have a forecast ledger. So I could say my forecast ledger, so I'll make another posting here, another line, so 55,008.10 for my forecast ledger will be maybe $950 for my forecast ledger, or something maybe more realistic would be $750. So again, I can save that. And now again, the forecast ledger does not have to be in balance because that is not something that I need equal debits and credits for. That is something that I can run a trial balance or a financial design or a graphic and show those budgetary and forecast numbers in my accounting system. So the similarities in posting your FASB books and your budget and forecasting, they're similar operations. The only difference is budgetary forecasting ledgers do not have to be in balance. So now how do we use this? How do we take this information and how do we get this into the accounting system without posting it one line at a time like I'm doing the budgetary and financial and forecast budgets here? Okay, so do you remember earlier we talked about financial designs and we made the statement, if you can imagine a spreadsheet that you want to build and that information is coming out of your financial system, you can build it. So we can imagine a budget workbook. And so here is a budget workbook that we have imagined and built in our Excel financial experience. So this is a workbook that we're going to use to budget for the following year. Now, this is an extensive workbook. It has a lot of information in it, but we've sort of assimilated, let me take away all of these are numbers that I want to fill in. Let me just take away this subscription. I'm going to do salary expenses down here. So let me just take away some of this information. So the object of the budget maintainer now is to put in an amount for the budget for the 25-26 fiscal year. But to give that budget maintainer information so that they can make a reasonable projection into the next year, we give them the actuals for the 2023, the budget for the 22-23, and maybe the difference in the 2022-23 from actual and budget. So the actual in 2022-23 is 1.4 million, and I can drill down on it and see the underlying detail. I can drill down on my budgets and see the underlying detail. And indeed, I can extend this. So we're using outlining here. So I can extend this and I can look at it on a periodic basis. So this is July, August, September, October, November, and so forth. And I can drill down on every one of those numbers and see the underlying detail. So what we're doing here is we're providing a lot of detail for the 22-23 details, for the 23-24 details, for the 24-25 details. So we can see all of our historical information and all the underlying data, either by year, or we can extend that with our outlining capabilities and see what the actual numbers were by period for those historical periods. So that provides the information from a historical standpoint. Now we can use Excel financial functions to extrapolate. So this is a linear regression function. So we can extrapolate using this historical information. We can extrapolate and create numbers here that the budget maintainer can use to guesstimate what he wants for the following year budgets. So remember, if we can imagine it, we can build it. So we imagined this spreadsheet, we built this spreadsheet. Now the budget maintainer can go in and he can say, okay, well, last year we budgeted to 1.4, the year before 1.5, the year before 1.4. This year I'm going to budget $1.6 million for that budget. And so they can, it's not 16 million. And so they can make that particular budget. So they can go down to the next line item, budget that line item, $140,000, and continue down. And now we can also extend that out, because as we make those annual budget, it backfills that information on a level playing field. So we're estimating our salaries will be level throughout the year, because these are staff salaries. They don't vary depending upon my venues, but vary depending upon the events that I'm creating in my venues. But there are other expenses down here. For example, expenses that are related to things like a particular venue rental, a particular production that I'm doing. And these particular things might vary by time, because we only have maybe 6 venue events per year. They don't occur uniformly throughout the year. So for those events, we also have the ability to weight our postings. So we have various weights here, and I'm not going to get into that in detail. I just want to tell you that we have ways that we can say, in the month of August, we have we have an event in the month of August, and September, and October, and November, and we're going to assign 20 units for those particular points in time. But back in December through March, we have no events, so we don't need to budget in those months. So we can weight our budgetary information. So as we fill in those budgetary numbers out here in our, let's put in $500,000 here, and you'll notice that as it backfills those numbers, it backfills them based upon the weights that particular expense has over time. So we can do it in several different ways up here. For our salaried expenses, this was a uniform expense over time, but as we move down into some of our venue related expenses, as our production related expenses, those can be varied over time based upon the actual dates of those events. And then once this spreadsheet is all filled out with all the numbers and approved, we can click this one button right here, and those amounts will now be transferred into our budget postings, just like I showed you a few minutes ago when I made a manual budget posting into my budget ledger and my forecast ledger. I don't have to export this into a spreadsheet. I can push this one button and it will incorporate all of those numbers directly back into my accounting system. Of course, it needs to go through an approval process first. It needs to go maybe to the board and get it approved by the board first, but we don't have to export this and import it into a spreadsheet and post it back in order to post it back into our accounting system. We can do so right here on the spreadsheet. And of course, that posting capability could certainly be limited to a subset of the users of the accounting system. So the ability to hit this button and make it do something would definitely be limited to a certain subset of the staff in your accounting system. Okay, so bottom line, we've imagined a very complex spreadsheet here. We have imagined a complex spreadsheet where you can see all your histories, you can see your histories of your budgets, you can make guesstimates based here. Those will be backfilled by period here. And if it's a non-uniform period, then we can use weights for the various periods and get those posted into our accounting system. So wouldn't it be nice if we could create spreadsheets like that and have that information into our accounting system in such a fashion? And indeed you can using ActivityHD. So let's go back into our presentation here. So we've shown you all of this information and it's nice and available in an accounting system as complete as ActivityHD. So just in review, in conclusion, we can build and publish our financial reports in Excel using ActivityHD. We can interface our ticketing system directly to our accounting system. We can have a built-in document management system. We can eliminate our filing cabinets and we can drill back to those documents from Excel spreadsheets, from trial balances, and from graphical reporting. And we can build a budget forecast workbook. We can disseminate that workbook to our budget maintainers. We can bring that back into the accounting system by hitting a button. So these are things that we said, wouldn't it be nice if we could do it? We've shown you that with the ActivityHD accounting system, all of these things are possible. Okay, so what are the next steps? The next steps, if this intrigues you and excites you, the next steps are we can schedule with you a discovery call. And in that discovery call, we ask you questions about your current accounting system, your current wants and desires, your current wishes. And then after that, we will schedule a complete personalized demo of ActivityHD that's based upon that discovery call. So we customize a demonstration based upon things that you want to see, things, your pain points, your desires and wishes. And then hopefully that leads to a positive outcome for accountingware in that you would be willing to transition to ActivityHD as your full function accounting system. So with that, let's turn it over to questions. So Sarah, have you had any questions of interest that you want to share with us and maybe we can answer in the couple of minutes that we have left?
Sure. So I do have one question I'm going to read here, but I want to prompt everyone else. If you do have any questions, please feel free to enter them now, or you can always email us with any additional questions you have. But Marvin, the question I have for you right now is, what if I need to budget at a more detailed level than simply the account number?
Well, in the particular accounting system that we were looking at here, we had the ability to budget both by account number and by event. And I didn't show that to you, but there was another column in that spreadsheet that we could implement to budget by individual events that you're having, individual performances of your orchestra, etc. Is that the answer you want?
I think that sounds like a good answer.
Okay. All right. So thank you all so much for attending today, and be sure and get with our sales staff and let us know if we can schedule a discovery call with you and lead that up to a full personalized presentation of ActivityHD. Okay, as you exit the webinar today, be sure to spend just a couple of minutes answering questions and that will put you in the queue for a chance to win this $25 Amazon gift card. Thank you so much for attending today. We hope that we've intrigued and interested you in the ActivityHD ERP system. Thank you.